another episode of Tampa Bay Politics. Another week has gone by already.
Too fast. Way too
And
fast.
there's a lot going on in politics. And remember, if you don't have time to keep up on what's going on, you can always tune in to us here at Tampa Bay Politics, and we're going to give you the scoop. I'm here with my co-host, Mary Gerasi, and that's journalist extraordinaire, and I'm Angela Birdsong. During the day, I help people successfully age on the Medicare and life insurance. And today, we do not have a guest that's in the studio.
But we have one calling in.
She'll be calling in. And guess what? We're going to be discussing a very, very important issue to the state of Florida, and that is water.
Yeah, I just read the newspaper yesterday, and it's stating by 2070, there for the abundant amount of people who keep moving into the state of Florida.
If we keep up at the pace that we're going, we're going to have more people than we have water.
Yeah, and to me, it's a nonpartisan issue. We're all going down if we can. It's going to be bad.
Now, the developers don't care about that.
No, they don't.
They just want to come in and build and build and build.
You're absolutely right. And our state legislators are handing off the right for them to do it. They're pumping our water from the springs. Nestle's company came in 110 million gallons a day. We're paying taxes on maintaining that waterway, and it's free. So they get to remove our water that we're paying taxes on and make money on it. I mean, it's the nepotism, cronyism, capitalism is insane.
I think we got a little problem with cronyism.
I think we have a big problem.
In Tallahassee.
Yeah. They're making money and we're losing our water, our most precious and valuable resource.
And you know what? If you donated a lot of money to Mr. DeSantis, you get to be on his water board.
Yeah. Doing nothing but taking our water. It's a free trip.
So these are the problems that we're facing in Florida. So we're waiting right now for a very, very good attorney who knows what's going on with this issue.
So tell me about you all's weekend.
Hey, you know what?
Tell me before we wait on the
I
call.
went to the most magnificent event in Tampa Bay.
So jealous. I heard it was a winner.
It's called the In Touch News Power Couple Ball. 10 years they've been doing this, and it was my very first time. And there was all kind of fancy people walking around, former Buccaneers. I saw Jasmine Stiles there from ABC Action News. And the piece de la resistance was they honored Brian Butler Communications and his lovely wife, Maureen. And they are a power couple in Tampa.
Yeah.
He has an awesome public relations business. He sits on the board for the Tampa Bay Chamber of Commerce. So he's a mover and shaker. I didn't even know he had worked for the White House in the past. So we got some pretty dynamic people in Tampa. You don't even realize it.
I can't say I got to hang with such a wonderful caliber of people, but I did run into Joe Citro at a party I was at, our councilman, who's going to appear on our show.
Okay.
He's going to make an effort to get here.
So tell me, Mr. Darrell Johnson, how did you start that Power Couples Ball?
You know, it started when at the death of my son back in 2008. When he died, my wife started the ball in 2009. Actually, that's when she really began to put her attention there.
Okay.
The goal is to promote marriage and family. We believe that we can help young men develop into strong men through education. They can help to keep the family structure together. So that's primarily it. But you got your caller.
Okay. And just so you know, there's money from that event that goes towards scholarships.
It does. The Braxton Darrell Johnson Foundation.
Thank you for doing that. We appreciate that. Jane, are you with us?
I am. Hi.
Hey, introduce yourself to the show. Name and title.
Sure. So my name is Jane West. I'm an environmental and land use attorney based out of St. Augustine, and I am the 1,000 Friends of Florida's new policy and planning director. That's a statewide organization that's dedicated to making sure that Florida remains sustainable.
Now, Jane.
Oh, there's your audience.
We always start at the beginning in your unique story, where you were born and raised, your education. Tell us a little bit about you.
Sure. I was raised overseas in Athens, Greece, and then later in Budapest, Hungary. My parents were teachers with the American Embassy School System, and then came over here to the States in the Tampa Bay area, actually, when I was a teenager. And got very interested in environmental issues in high school, carried that through college. Anyone who was at USF back in the day probably remembers FPERG and a bunch of kids going around with clipboards trying to get Governor Bob Martinez to ban offshore oil drilling off the coast of Florida. Yeah. And that's just continued throughout my entire professional career. Went to Nova Law and interned at the Environmental and Land Use Law Clinic. And while I was still a law student, became involved in trying to actually stop the Villages development, which...
Really? That's still going?
Yeah, forever.
They put another 2,000 homes out there.
Yeah, it's still killing us.
Yeah. The
taking our land.
Development in the country. So
yeah. Let me ask you a question, because I was also raised overseas as a kid. Do you think that informed your decision to be involved in water and land? They do things differently in Europe. Did that inform you in any way, or it was just a love you always had?
Yeah, I mean, I can't pinpoint exactly what, but I will say, obviously Budapest is a very metropolitan area, and we use transit all the time. It was compact development when I lived there. We used trolleys to get around. And you can't live in that sort of environment and then move over to the out of control, rampant, sprawling place that is Tampa Bay, and not notice a real clear difference just in how you get from point A to point B. When I go to visit Tampa now, as I did just this past weekend, I navigate through that city that I used to know like the back of my hand because of the massive amount of new development there. It is unrecognizable. There is no sense of place. And it's made great strides. Tampa Bay downtown, Tampa downtown looks really good, but there's a lot of work to be done and a lot of good planning that could have been implemented decades ago didn't happen, and I think we're all starting to pay.
Well, we believe in if you pay off your county commissioner, you can build what you want.
Watch out, Angela's got it going on today.
Yeah. And you can build where you want to do it.
Well, yes, we have our opinions on the show, and that's definitely one of them. And we were just talking about DeSantis putting all those people on his water board. Isn't that interesting? Donors to his campaign.
Yeah, I think DeSantis just came out with this environmental rollout with his new priorities for this upcoming legislative session. And, he definitely, I have to say, I think he surprised us all within the environmental community with how he kind of came out of the box with, replacing all those South Florida water management districts.
I was so excited. And hopeful.
Right. And
so hopeful.
There were some good things. There have been some good things that he's done. And I think it's important to acknowledge that.
Yeah.
Obviously, 40% increase in Everglades restoration funding is important. And oh my gosh, now we can actually say the words climate change and global warming without a muzzle on us. That's, really
That's
important.
A plus.
We have a chief resiliency officer. These are good things. $50 million for springs restoration. That's awesome. It really, really needs it. But, we're coming off of 8 years of, hands down, the environmental governor that this state has ever seen. So, it doesn't take much.
To look good, right? You do one thing, like I bought a gallon of water and put it in the Hillsborough River. Woo, restoration. Yeah.
Do you think that Scott was responsible for the algae problem that we've had?
I'm sorry, can you repeat that?
Do you think that the former governor, Scott, was responsible for the algae problem that we've had in the Tampa Bay area?
I don't think you can put your finger on any one person, but certainly his removal of the funding for the agencies that were tasked with making sure our water quality remained sustainable. He gutted FDEP. He gutted the budget, and the scientists that had the institutional knowledge at the water management districts, they were fired.
Wow.
They were transferred to positions that they were not qualified for. A lot of them ended up leaving because they were so disgruntled. So yes, I think you can put a lot of blame squarely on him. But I think there also needs to be a lot of reflection on the part of industry that pushes for lawmakers, gets them elected to do their bidding. There's a lot of responsibility that can go all the way around on the blue
we call that paid off.
Yeah.
Bought
out by the lobbyists. It's huge in Florida.
Absolutely.
I mean, it's like, so, getting back to that, when you got into your practice, what year did you get into practice, and what were some of the cases that you were working with that involved growth management, lack of growth management, and the water woes, even in St. Augustine? I know you've worked on some big things.
So, I started practicing law back in '98 down in West Palm Beach with Schutz and Bowen, and it was at that time that I was, still continuing to work on the village's development. More recently, here in St. Augustine, we've been working, on a lot of issues that I think the entire state shares in terms of dealing with death by 1,000 paper cuts and the changes to our comprehensive plan to accommodate new sprawling developments. And that is what is just going to end up killing Florida. You just keep on tacking on, 500 dwelling units here, 200 here, 3,000 there. And all of these people need water to drink, but
water for construction, water for concrete. I mean, it doesn't even make sense. They're destroying the water that they're going to need to do these things with anyway.
Yeah, and I should point out, probably the most egregious use of water in this state is landscape irrigation. 50% of the water in our homes is used for landscape irrigation.
Wow.
That's ridiculous.
Who knew?
I didn't know it was that high.
That's huge. That's huge.
Yeah, there shouldn't be a home in Florida that has St. Augustine turf grass in front of it. That is just not a sustainable practice when we're looking at doubling the population by the year 2070. We're going to run out of water.
Yeah.
So St. Augustine grass takes a lot more water?
Yeah, maintenance and water.
Okay,
yeah.
Okay.
And it's a conundrum. I mean, 1 minute we're in a drought, and 1 minute we're in the flood zone. Florida's weather is mercurial. We had rain, tons of rain, 3 weeks in a row. I mean, it was like flooding. And the next thing you know, we're in a drought. I mean,
right.
You would think the aquifers would fill with natural waters and resources, but they're being sucked dry by corporate entities. Even when we do have the water, it disappears.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, both of those weather situations cause major strains on our water ecosystem. Tampa Bay has the beauty of 700 miles of shoreline, but when you have a massive rain event in Tampa Bay, that means all of the pesticides and herbicides and fertilizers that everyone is dumping on their lawns goes right into Tampa Bay.
Yeah.
And that is what is causing a significant amount of the contribution to blue-green algae and our toxic situation with our waterways. And that has lasting implications. I mean, obviously it's affecting our marine environment and the animals that live within the Tampa Bay region. But beyond that, it has significant impacts on the local economy. And I think that's the wake-up call that all of Florida saw 2 years ago when we had the algae crisis.
Yep.
Right.
Is the hotels, the
restaurants,
the
venues,
fishing industry, the charter boat captains, they all started to see how this was really going to affect.
As a tourist, I don't want to see blue-green algae outside of my window.
And dead dolphins and manatees and the whole shebang were dying left and right.
That kills the tourism business.
Yeah. So what do you perceive as far as This is kind of a loaded question. I'm sorry to ask it. The we've got a break coming up. You want to go to break? Okay. We're going to be right back with you. Hang on. And a couple of minutes to pay the bills. Someone has to do it.
All
Thank
right.
North Sanchez Street.
We're back. And we're talking about water in Florida, and we all need water to live. So this is an important issue for every resident of the state of Florida. And we have on the line Jane West, and she's an environmental attorney. Jane, are you still with us?
I am.
All right.
You know, we had been discussing how many battles you've been dealing with. Local governments not being able to stop the rampage of construction, of building, the waterways being taken over, the land being just plundered and pillaged. Mm-hmm. How does this happen? What's happening? Why is it happening, especially in Florida?
Well, I'm going to pivot that spotlight right back on all of us for electing these people into office. I hate to say it, but in order to effectuate change, meaningful change, we have got to change the dynamic of leadership to start to recognize the value of our natural resources here in this
I call it vote blue.
Yep, that's her mantra, vote blue.
Vote blue.
Right. Yeah, and I'm totally with you on that. But quite frankly, I would really like for the environment to not be a partisan issue because, quite frankly, we all need to have clean water.
Yes.
We need to have a place to live. We need clean air. No one, whether you're a Republican or a Democrat, wants to look at a dead dolphin on the beach. And so, to the extent that we can get past the partisanship, because that is what has been the death knell for Florida's environment is, for example, Rick Scott taking on this position that being in favor of the environment was somehow a Democratic issue. That's not how we should be viewing this.
No, really what he meant to say is that he wants to line his pockets with money and so do his cronies.
Yeah.
And that the people that are donating to their campaigns are interested in things like building big developments. Mm-hmm. It's a money thing.
Yeah.
It absolutely is. And that's why the people that we put into office, even on a very, very local basis, are super important because those local land use decisions, the death by 1,000 paper cuts, those are all made by your local elected officials. They get presented with a comprehensive plan amendment change for a change to the future land use map or rezoning or a variance request. That's made by your city commissioners, your county commissioners. That's not made at the state level. Yes, if it's a comprehensive plan amendment, the state Department of Economic Opportunity will, give its little check approval, but then it goes right back down to the local government. So who we put into office at the local government level is really, really important, and they need to be informed of the very dire environmental position that Florida is now facing. There's only one Florida.
Yeah, once
now,
it's gone, it's gone.
I don't know if you're aware of the makeup of our new county commission.
In Tampa, yeah.
In Tampa. But we were able to get an environmentalist on there named Mariela Smith.
Yep.
And we also already had Pat Kemp on there. And then we added Kimberly Overman.
Yeah.
And we have Les Miller, too. Les Miller, unfortunately, although he's a Democrat, believes that we need some place to put all the people that are coming. So we had this big land use debate going on the council, on the county commission right now, because there's an area called BALM, B-A-L-M. It's on the other side of Waimama, which they've been trying to keep rural for a very long time, and they're losing the battle, unfortunately.
That whole area Riverview is exploded. I mean, there's $300,000 homes on 41 all the way down to Sarasota and Bradenton, and
But we got the issue of where we're gonna put the people that are coming.
Yeah.
Sure. Well, obviously, Waimama doesn't have the infrastructure to handle that capacity of population. And beyond that, it really doesn't make sense from a sustainability perspective. You really want to try and keep your core population density as tight from a geographical standpoint as possible. That way they're using all the same infrastructure and you're not having to
Sprawl.
build out.
You're not sprawling.
We know for sure, and this is proven again and again and again, that residential development, does not pay for itself. All you have to do is look at the villages. They had a very controversial county commission meeting last night because they are asking for a tax increase of 26% because they can't pay for the infrastructure. This stuff doesn't pay for itself.
That's right.
So putting it out in Waimama is just a foolhardy proposition. And that
they're going past Waimama now. I don't know if you've ever gone out there.
Baum is right next to Waimama, though. It's
and so we're going almost as far as
towards Bradenton,
to the Hillsborough County line as we possibly can. Right now, it's very rural. It looks like farmland.
Ruskin is exploded, and there's very little.
I knew that area was going to be on the chopping block because they're looking for land. Developers are looking for land.
And it makes me sad to think that we're having, all these people moving in every day for what? There isn't going to be clean water left. There aren't going to be the dolphins and the manatees and the things that may have originally attracted a lot of us to come here, to get in our boats, to paddleboard, to jet ski, to whatever, swim and enjoy it. It's a conundrum. Absolutely. It's quite the conundrum. And I know it's one you deal with all the time.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm just going to also just put this on everyone's radar, that it now is even increasingly more difficult for citizens to engage in the public process because there was a recently enacted House Bill 7103, that unfortunately Governor DeSantis did sign into law. If there's one thing that he would like to do to help Florida's environment and land use decision-making process, it would be to repeal the prevailing party attorney's fees on 7103. And I'll briefly explain. It has a chilling effect on people participating in the public process. It's so hard to get people to the local county commission meetings in the first place to engage on a development. But if you have them come and they have the kahunas to challenge a proposed development, now, due to this bill, they can get hit with the developer's attorney's fees if they end up losing. So really, really bad news on that front. We're hoping.
That's horrific.
And I'm saying this in my capacity, not only as an environmental and land use lawyer, but also sitting as 1,000 Friends of Florida's policy and planning director. The repeal of that amendment is the single best thing this governor could do this legislative session to help Florida's environment.
How do we, as voters, informed voters, get involved with promoting the repeal of that? What can we do?
Start that public pressure. First of all, let people know. It's such a dry topic, right?
Yeah, but
explaining it. I'm like, oh my God, I'm boring myself. But it's so important,
nobody likes to go to land use meetings, but we have to. We have to stop. This is getting bad. And then that passing that bill is insane. If you go up against the villages and lose, you end up with their $1.2 million lawyers' fees. It's again crushing the will of the voter.
All right. So explain this. Is it's in effect right now, this law?
Yes. So this amendment was tacked onto the bill in the last hours of the legislative session. It didn't get vetted through any sort of committee process. It just kind of slid in on there. And then we were all hoping that the governor would veto it, and he did not. He signed it into law this past summer. There is a lawsuit that 1,000 Friends of Florida just filed a couple of weeks ago. It was one of the first things I did on the job was sued over this to get it repealed. But that pressure needs to come from the public to reach out to the governor, to your local elected officials, your state reps. Let them know that you want to see House Bill 7103 repealed.
7103. Okay, look it up, folks.
We got to get on that.
7103. And, it's just another way of putting their hands over our mouth, and they're doing it. The passing of the, I call it the highway to hell, the 300-mile toll thing going to Georgia. That was done at the last minute, boom, and it's through, and nobody wants it.
Right. Yeah.
Somebody wants it.
Well,
the last thing we should be doing is putting more carbon emitting vehicles onto new roads to nowhere that open up more raw, undeveloped land to sprawl. I mean, it's a lose, lose, lose all the way around.
And that's some of our pristine area near Gainesville. You know how beautiful it is. The springs are there. The animals are there. 300 miles of just destruction and asphalt. It's like
you're just going to rip up the whole state. I mean, that's the goal, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it absolutely will. Some of the places that these proposed roads are going through in Pasco County, for example, it's proposed to plow right through a mitigation bank. This is bad stuff.
Wow.
But it's this, fait accompli attitude that the state really suffers from, I believe, in part because so many people hail from other parts of the country. And so they're not familiar with our ecosystem. They find water moccasins and alligators to be, just incredibly scary things. But hey, they were here first.
That's right. They deserve to live.
Yeah, absolutely. We're in their backyard. And I know what you mean. They don't own it. When you live someplace long enough, you feel personal about it.
Right.
We are offended to see a dead manatee or a dead dolphin at the beach dying from red tide and all sorts of other things, no matter how it happened. We're here to enjoy the eco environment. I'm going on a Scrub Jay tour out in Mayaca. I can do those things here. I can go down the Hillsborough River, rent a canoe, see those scary gators and visit beautiful, beautiful waterways, go tubing down the Ishnatucknee, Ginny Springs. I mean, we have beautiful, beautiful the Devil's Canyon thing where you jump in this giant hole and have a blast.
Devil's Mill Hopper.
Yeah, totally beautiful. So little by little, it's disappearing. And I don't know why these people are coming. If we're allowed to destroy, why I would think they would even want to come. It's getting bad.
This is our home and we love it.
You can't put a fence, or maybe you can these days. I don't know. You can seem to put a wall around almost anything. But, I don't think you're going to be able to stem the flow of population growth into this state. I don't think that's a reasonable conversation that we can have because it's just going to happen. But where you choose to put this influx of people is really, really important. And that is a decision that we do have control over. So one of the other things that I think is critically important to making sure that Florida actually remains a beautiful place to live, work, and play is the funding of Florida Forever funds. You guys might remember this 5 years ago. The overwhelming majority of Florida voters voted on Amendment 1 to make sure that we got that funding back that Rick Scott had gutted. Yes. But the fact of the matter is, even after that constitutional amendment, we still only have 10% of what we had in the bank there and money coming in that we had under Jeb Bush's administration. So we've got a long way to go. And
where did the rest of that money go?
It got diverted all over the place. It was like a legislator's, lottery slush fund. So
it's a free-for-all grab-a-thon. So on that note, I hate to say this. Speaking of grabbing, we got to grab some commercials to help pay for the show. We will be back. We'll pick up where we dropped off. Thanks, Jane.
This is Dale Day. Join me every Monday at 7 p.m. for Jazz at Miss Connie's house, bringing you the smoothest jazz and the coolest guests right here on In Touch Radio.
My name is Gil Sampson. I didn't come from a very rich family, and so paying for college would have been very tough. I don't know if I would have been able to go to the college that I went to, and then I don't know if I would have gotten into the career that I am in. So I think Bright Futures has done a lot to shape my life. I got a job as a structural engineer, and I design residential buildings, commercial buildings all over the United States. Because of Bright Futures, I was able to go to college. You know, so many kids just don't even ever get that opportunity. And to be able to do it and not have any debt when I graduated is amazing. And it was all thanks to Bright Futures.
Florida has created more than 1 million jobs in only 5 years, and a great education connects our students to these exciting opportunities. That's why the Florida Lottery has funded Bright Futures scholarships to help over 725,000 students attend college. Because every play is for education. The Florida Lottery. Just imagine.
Hey, this is Agent Wright, better known as Mr. Clean. You looking for some great barbecue? Come see them two brothers in the grill, located at 423 Virginia Street, Charleston, West Virginia. We got ribs, chicken, pulled pork, brisket, collard greens, mac and cheese, baby. Come get some and get you a nice, smooth cigar. 304-550-4431. That is 304-550-4431. Come get some, baby. The Rib Man, mama, the Rib Man.
Hey, we're back to Tampa Bay Politics. And boy, we got a controversial issue that affects every single person in the state of Florida.
Yeah.
And that is our water.
Yeah, just recently I read, maybe a day ago, that by 2070, there's not going to be enough water for the influx of people coming to the state. And that behooved me to reach out and ran into my dear friend, Jane West, environmental lawyer and land use lawyer. You with us here, Jane?
I am.
Okay.
So let me ask a crazy crazy question.
This is Daryl Johnson, the owner and proprietor of
Hi,
the
Daryl.
network.
Hello, Attorney
Introduce
West.
you.
With all this ocean around us, why can't we have a desalination plant that can quench our thirst for the next 200 years?
Sure. I mean, you can. It's just, wildly cost prohibitive. That's always been the problem with desal RO plants. And that's the simple truth of the matter is it's extremely expensive. And you have to keep in mind you're looking at municipalities that are suffering with infrastructure like sewage pipes and failing septic systems. They don't have the money to replace septic systems, much less spend the billions of dollars it would take to get a desal plant up and running.
So is there an alternative to desalination?
Yes, there is.
What is
it's
it?
called, it's actually practically free. It's called water conservation.
Yeah.
Here's the thing. That might not be completely sufficient because we're so far down the line now. So even modest conservation of 20% is probably not going to be sufficient, but doing nothing is definitely not the right approach. By the year 2070, so we're looking at 50 years out from now, we're looking just in your Central Florida corridor alone at a usage of 3 trillion gallons per
God.
day. That's
Wow.
up 1 trillion gallons per day from where we are right now, just in that one slice of Florida.
Wow.
So this is big.
Yeah.
Water is going to be, the great limiter in terms of growth, you would think, except the fact of the matter is the water management districts are continuing to issue consumptive use permits left and right to such, frivolous uses as stuffing water into a plastic bottle
Nestle's.
for
Yeah.
a single use that's probably going to end up in our ocean.
Yeah.
And I'm speaking directly about Nestle, for example, but there are a lot of other water companies that are tapping into
Zephyr
our
Hills,
springs.
on and on and on.
Zephyr Hills.
Yeah.
Yep. And that's a problem.
They get it for free.
practice
They get it
needs
for
to
free.
stop.
And we
They
pay
get
the
it for
taxes
free.
on the water maintenance.
So Nestle and Zephyr Hills get their water for free.
They don't pay.
Yes,
We
they
don't get
do.
any money for that.
No?
You're paying for it.
Are you
Surprise.
Yeah, I am.
I don't mean to laugh, but it's the irony of our government and our people and our voters.
Right.
Okay,
And
so
that
how is it allowed? Let me just ask, how is that allowed? What legislation allows them to do that?
it goes right back to how we started this whole conversation. Is the politicians that we're putting into office are, especially coming off the Scott administration, are very beholden to those big business entities. And we're not talking chump change here. The bottled water industry is a hot, booming, incredible moneymaker. And so infringing on that in any way is going to get major blowback from these corporate interests. Nestle is a massive company. This is not something that they're going to let go of easily.
110 million gallons a day from our springs, from our waterways.
Right.
Really?
Yep.
Right.
And we don't even get a penny?
Nope. And most people don't even know this is going on. It's not behind your backs. Check out the papers. Start reading, environmental Sierra clubs approached it.
Okay, but still, my question wasn't answered, which is, how is it allowed?
Yep.
Yeah, so basically what they do is they apply to the water management districts for the issuance of a consumptive use permit. And more often than not, increasingly, from what we've seen over the last 10 years, hardly ever are those consumptive use permits
turned down,
denied.
Yeah. Okay.
And on the go ahead.
Okay, so I could apply for a consumptive use permit, pump water out for free,
as long as you're giving money to your legislators. You have to be a big enough corporation to lobby. It's the lobby.
So let me be clear on that. When we say for free, there is a permit application and staff has to review it. So, there's some money going towards the water management district to pay for the processing of that permit application. But, we are not talking about getting the company to pay for a per bottle price on what they are drawing out of our aquifer. And we all pay the price for that. Yeah. When the flow out of the springs starts to become diminished, what we're looking at, instead of a beautiful, iconic spring like Rainbow Springs, for example, you're going to start looking at a putrefying waste of what once used to be a glorious resource.
Black Lagoon.
Black Lagoons, a lot of money. A lot of tourists love to see these springs. They're iconic.
They're gorgeous, and I spend time on them.
What comes to mind is sinkholes. Is that a trip? Taking all that water out of the aquifer. Does that contribute to sinkholes?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And this has been an issue. Public hearings and formal administrative hearings where, engaged citizens and organizations such as the Florida Springs Council, for example, have become really engaged on trying to stop this, stem the tide, so to speak. But it's challenging. You're looking at nonprofits working and getting engaged, or just really ticked off citizens.
Yeah,
right.
And that's not enough. That's just really David and Goliath is the context there.
So what do you recommend? I mean, to me, this almost sounds like a no-brainer. Every time you vote for an elected official, that you find out what their water records are, what their environmental records are. Is that a must?
I think so. And I would look and push them more on specifics. Like, for example, acres off of the development chart, that land becomes incredibly valuable in terms of what it can contribute to our overall ecosystem. And there's no way to do it in Florida other than just completely removing it, either acquiring it outright or putting a conservation easement on it. So Florida Forever funding is absolutely critical to the state's survival from an ecosystem standpoint.
So is Florida Forever funding at bottomland, right?
That's right. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And Florida's got historically a great reputation for doing this. There's the recognition that some land is just so iconic that it needs to be preserved years, decades. And helping acquire thousands and thousands of acres. That all came to a screeching halt when Governor Scott stepped into office.
Right. That thing died in the water,
funds
pardon
for
the
that-
pun.
Mhm. The funds for that were diverted. It used to be a percentage of our dock stamp fees every time there's a real estate transaction would go into this pot of money.
Nice.
And that pot of money, which historically had been, hundreds of millions of dollars every year, was used to buy land.
And where do we stand with this now? Is it dead in the water? Is somebody trying to give it CPR and revive it? What's happening with it?
No, it's not dead in the water. It's an amendment to our Constitution,
Okay, good.
which requires the refunding of those programs for acquisition purposes.
Okay.
That was subject to a legal challenge because the legislature started pilfering that money once again. So there was a legal challenge, but it's on the books. It's just a matter of getting the funding allocation from our state legislatures right. So when they head into session this January, that needs to be a big push from the constituents. They need to hear from the people that put them into office that funding Florida Forever is a really big priority. If they don't hear that, they're not going to act on it.
Now, we do have an active Sierra Club here.
Mm-hmm.
Are you working with them on this effort?
Well, regionally, no, because I'm all the way up here in Northeast Florida. I know your Suncoast Sierra chapter is awesome.
We had Phil Compton on recently.
Do you know Phil Compton?
They've been doing some great work.
Yeah.
Well, I guess that would be one of their would be on their
Issues.
agenda.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I think any statewide environmental organization in the state of Florida, this is on their priority list for sure. It's not just one organization; it's multiple organizations. There's a broad recognition that without this funding, we have a tremendous amount to lose.
Do you know of any allies that you feel are on our side for our Florida legislators? Do you know some folks out there that are going to bat, people we should support, people we should know about?
In your
legislative
area?
Or no, our Florida legislators. Do you know anybody who's a warrior?
I'm not really familiar with who you have locally over there in Tampa Bay.
No, not Tampa Bay, the state of Florida. Florida legislators. Yes. Do you know anybody that we should support or know about or, make sure they stay in office?
So we can tell friends.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's probably a little bit more information than I'm prepared to give.
That's fine.
Call.
That's fine.
Yeah.
That's fine. So, yeah. So we need to find out who they are. There's got to be people, from nationwide. We have our very own Kathy Castor, who is
we know she's good on the environment.
Environmentally friendly.
We just want to get rid of people like Jamie Grant, Tom Lee.
Yeah.
We don't like those people.
Yeah. And even locally, Ken Hagen.
Don't care about the environment. Ken Hagen is he's in the pocket for developers on the county commission. Yeah. So we know who the bad guys are.
Good.
So at the same time, I love this conversation. Thank you so much. It's very informative. I mean, I'm learning a lot. So for the average voter, the average person, the folks we're reaching out to on our show every single day through our podcast, which is weekly, how do we become a good steward of the land and a good steward of the water as an everyday citizen? What can we do? You have some stuff?
So, a lot of what we've already touched on, just engaging in the public process, being informed is such a big thing. I'm always stunned by just, the kind of shrugging of the shoulders like, oh, I didn't know that. Mm-hmm. And I get it. Like, we're all super busy. This is just a crazy world that we're living in, and it's really hard to even pay attention to what's going on right next door to you. But that engagement is really important. Making sure that you're an informed voter and staying in tune with the issues. But more just like bringing it back to really in your backyard. What can you be doing? Turf.
No St. Augustine.
Replace it with some Florida native vegetation, especially if you're proximate to a wetland or a coastal area, and Scott's fertilizer bag is basically going right into Tampa Bay. Make sure that doesn't happen. That's something that you can take personal responsibility for.
Zero escaping, right? Zero escaping is an option. Zero escaping.
Absolutely.
Yep.
That, and I know your show is mostly about water, but this really kind of dovetails into it. Tampa Bay has a massive water pollution problem in the form of plastic pollution.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that's on us, guys. Like, no one is forcing you to go buy the 24-pack of plastic bottles from Zephyr Hills.
I'm trying to cut
Bring
down.
your own water.
and I have as well.
We use filtered water in our house.
Yeah,
now.
we do too.
Right.
We got rid of the bottles, and small things too. I now have a metal straw with a little cleaner that I bring with me if I have to have a straw. If not, I push the straws away.
That's wonderful.
I work at a nonprofit agency, and they had these coffee stirrers, little tiny plastic coffee stirrers. I wrote an anonymous note to the woman in charge and kind of brought up the environmental
I'm
angle.
seeing more.
And now we have the wooden ones.
Stirred.
Yeah.
Yes, I am.
I don't use the K-cup. I have the K-cup you refill. It's the plastic one because the K-cups are huge.
That's another single-use item we can get rid of.
Yeah.
So I got a question.
Usually.
Question from Daryl.
I have a question about watering my grass. So if I'm on a septic tank and I water my grass, doesn't the water go right back into the aquifer?
Yeah, you're going to lose water if you're pulling from a well or any source for that matter, and you're spraying it all over your lawn. You're going to lose water to evapotranspiration, and it doesn't all go back right into the ground and percolate down into the aquifer. Furthermore, that takes a long time. It depends on the geology of exactly what your lawn is sitting on. But the geological formations in the Tampa Bay area can vary, and that percolation down to the aquifer can sometimes take a very short amount of time. Other times it can take years or decade. And so, I get it. It's a loop. That's what we all learn in elementary school. That it rains, it goes into the ground, it comes back up. But depending on that circle of life, when you have so many interrupters, is really problematic. The best solution in terms of lawn watering is to use native vegetation that doesn't require that heavy landscape irrigation. If you can do one thing in terms of cutting down your water usage, it would be to do that, because that accounts, like I said, accounts for 50% of your typical residential water usage in the state.
I grow cactuses. I have tons of cactuses. That's what I grow. Hey, I have a black thumb. If I touch a plant with a beautiful flower on it, it'll die.
Now,
But
what about
I do the
pesticides
cactuses
on the lawn?
No
Can you
pesticides
do,
on my lawn.
non-toxic?
Organics? Are there anything organic?
I didn't hear that. I'm sorry.
Pesticides on the lawn. Is there a way you can do it non-toxic?
Yeah, I mean, and I'm not a landscaper. There are I do have my own vegetable garden.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't use any sort of sprays whatsoever, and that's why I never have any tomatoes, because the worms kill everything off.
But all the birds and the bees, like plants around, you're eating them up, right?
Right.
The giant.
What I have noticed is that nothing likes my kale.
Okay.
I don't
That's
even like
good
your
for you.
kale.
That's good. That's good. I don't use pesticides on my lawn.
I don't either.
It's been
I
about
do
7
not.
years now since I stopped.
Okay.
No pesticide. I'm done with
And
that.
this is what I like about having these conversations and why I love these people and love doing the show. You've got 3 folks here. Angela gave up the plastic water bottles. I gave up the plastic water bottles. He's not doing pesticides. I'm not doing pesticides. If every one of us treats Mother Earth like she's our own mother in our backyard, we live in Florida. We want to see the manatees. We want to go out on the boat to the beach and get a nice 40